I thought we played one of our better performances and still came out on the losing end. So that's painful. Pain can be good. The game can teach us lessons. And as I've continued to tell the players all season long, I have a vision. I know where we're going as a program. I know where we're going as a team. And at some point, we'll look back on this as a really important time. But right now, it's very painful.
After this, like immediately after you mentioned at 0-6, like that's the end all be all, kind of that's what your credibility ties to. What have you noticed buy-in wise after a couple days removed? Is the team still kind of rallying, like focusing more on how you guys played versus just the loss?
The boys worked hard on Sunday. I thought they came in with a lot of attention. Everyone was there. You know, typically when you're talking about a group of 100 people, there's somebody sick, there's somebody that just doesn't show up, there's somebody that's alarm that doesn't go off, because we meet earlier in the morning on Sundays after a game, and there was none of that. So everybody was there, and not only that, the enthusiasm, the effort in the weight room, all of that was inspiring for me. So it's fun to be in there, working alongside of them, and then we kind of, it's what we call our flush day, get a lot of good exercise, a lot of running, a lot of lifting, learn from the positives and the negatives that occurred in the game, and then move on. And I thought Sunday went as well as it could.
So how much of keeping that buy-in comes from the locker room itself, like the leaders setting the example, versus you work out with the team, you're well involved. Where's that balance need to fall?
That's a really good question. I take all of it on myself, or we take all of it as coaches. I have a knee-jerk reaction, and am almost offended when I hear coaches gripe about a lack of leadership, because I believe that it's the coach's responsibility to develop leadership and to inspire leadership, and I think that's been one of the hallmarks of my head coaching career, is the ability to keep teams positive, to finish seasons strong, and to maintain a motivated team that's got a high level of leadership. And I think we're in a good spot with that right now.
Then you kind of moving forward to the Cal Poly game here. I know you don't focus much on schedule, but you've kind of faced a gauntlet up until this point, and just from the outside looking in, this looks like a little easier matchup. I know you probably don't want to speak too much to that, but how much do you kind of buy into the idea of a breakthrough kind of opening things up for the rest of the season, if a great performance against Cal Poly could kind of open the floodgates per se moving forward? Yeah,
there's no, I know there's a line in Vegas or somewhere on every game, and I know that there's what fans or pundits or something might call more winnable games, less winnable games, upsets, whatever. For the team that's playing on the field, all the losses hurt and all the wins feel good. And so I think the idea of breaking through at some point and getting our first win is this team. This team has never won. Players on this team have won in years past. Coaches on this team have won in years past, but this team doesn't know what it feels like to win together. And so I want that experience for the players, and I think there's tremendous value in chasing that, and I think there's tremendous value in accomplishing it and what that would mean for the rest of the season.
Then kind of, so how much has changed through the season, what you guys do? How much of that is matchup based, focused on the individual opponent, versus trying to focus on what you guys do well as a team and kind of establishing that identity?
A really good question. I think from week to week, it might be easier to put a close approximation percentage on it, because I think from week to week it is a little bit different. Certainly early in the season, I think there was a lot more for us as coaches trying to figure out who our best playmakers were, who are the guys that can transfer the performances in practice into the games, and who's still struggling to find that games the ability to bring their practice performance into games. And so, at this point in the season, we really don't have a lot of questions that way. There are guys that are still emerging on the depth chart. The depth charts are still up for competition, and there's movement on that, but not near as much as game 1, 2, 3, game 4, 5, and 6. I think you've seen a more consistent lineup, a more consistent system of offense and defense. And I think we're finding our identity in that way. And that being said, every team at Cal Poly brings new challenges, and they have their own identity, and we have to make sure that our players really understand the subtle nuances and differences in our alignments and techniques and strategies and what's pertinent to this game against Cal Poly.
Okay, so what are a few of those challenges that Cal Poly brings unique to some of the other teams you've played?
Yeah. So far, I mean, the scouting report is only the previous games, as you know and well understand. But so far, they've been a pass-first team on offense. They're a man-based team on defense, and I think that's how their coaches and players would describe them. If you gave them, okay, what's our top thing, and so that's different than what we faced even last week with Sacramento State. Was a run-based offense first and a quarters-based defense first. And so just that alone is, I could go down a long list with a lot of conversation, and that's why our coaches spend, basically 48 hours between the end of one game and the beginning, our first practice of the week, which will occur later this afternoon. There's basically 48 hours of work plugged in there. Guys don't sleep very much, and it's a real grind because there are a lot of details.
Okay, then, so just kind of looking briefly off of these, Cal Poly, they've struggled in the first half of games. That comes for a multitude of reasons, I'm sure. But how important is kind of getting on the board early? You've had some quick starts with the, I think, first play of the game interception against Idaho State and then the turnover against Sac State, but kind of struggled to capitalize on those. How important will be getting points on the board early and kind of taking command early?
Not as important as how we finish, which we've also learned, but critically important. To start well, to play well in the what some coaches call the middle eight, but really to go into momentum with some halftime, to come out of momentum and to be able to. Or to come out of halftime and be able to establish momentum or reestablish momentum, and then to finish the game strong. That's really what winning is kind of putting those three phases together. It's an indication that the team's in good condition. It's an indication that the team has good confidence, can overcome the ups and downs, and it's an indication that the coaches know what they're doing. Every game requires adjustments. We could go and play the best or worst teams in the country, and there's still people understand football well enough at all levels that there's going to be challenges and adjustments and punches and counter punches, and so those being able to excel in the early part of the game, the middle part of the game, and the end part of the game, it's an indication that things are going well in those areas.
So where would you say, kind of following that you guys have struggled so far, where could you kind of improve? I guess it varies game to game because the Sac State played out a lot different than Weber State, but kind of as overall on the season, where do you think you could improve in those areas?
Yeah, I think the improvement is the consistency. I think we've closed some games strong. And I don't want to take too much of like our game against Washington State, for example. I thought we closed the game strong. I thought we closed the game strong against Abilene Christian, which was a closer game, and we weren't playing against Abilene's backups, but it wasn't enough to win. We didn't start very well. We didn't play the middle part of the game very well. Idaho State, we played really well in the third quarter, as well as we played all year. Weber State, we played really well in the first half. And then I thought Sacramento State, we played well defensively in the final three quarters and played better offensively in the middle part of the game, and just didn't close as well as we could have. So I think every game's a little different, and I wouldn't say that our team has a a certain habit or a certain area of the game where we're failing. Like if we were always failing in the fourth quarter, which I guess that could be, a case could be made for that because we've lost every game. But I haven't felt like that our execution or our competitiveness has necessarily dropped off in fourth quarters. I don't think that's the reason for the losses. But if it were, then I could answer your question and say, well, we need to be stronger physically and better conditioned.
Okay. And sorry for bouncing around so much, but Sam Heward, he looks like a bright spot on the Cal Poly team. Can you speak a little on him? What challenges he kind of brings to the table?
Sure, yeah, really accurate, really strong arm. You kind of, one play against Montana State could sum up everything that you would need to know about him in terms of ability, but he feels some pressure from his right side and rolls to his left and completes a pass, really almost in full stride, over 50 yards in the air, and finds a guy down the field, and that's the kind of a big play capability that he can make, both escaping, extending plays with his feet, having a big arm to get over the top of the defense and stretch the defense, and then he's got a lot of accuracy too. So in the quick game and the RPOs, he really keeps the defense balanced up. We can't gang up on their run game. We can't leave a light box. He's very good in that RPO part of the game, and can make you pay.
And then kind of flipping that to the defensive side for you guys, is that just commit or discipline, do assignments, making sure you don't have breakdowns for him to kind of exploit, or what's the focus on that side?
Yeah, we got to play it straight. They're not they're not a gimmicky offense. I think a lot of people, their first inclination is if somebody's passing the ball and not running it very often, that it's gimmicky or it's guru-y. But they have sound, solid systems. They have systems that repeat week to week that they're very good at. They have new wrinkles, nuances. They have in certain games where teams are trying to play them with a light box or a light rush. They've really got the run game going, so they know exactly who they are and what they're doing, and they present a real challenge that way.
Thought the players played really hard. It's one of the top teams in the conference. I want to say they've had they've three-peated the last 3 years, conference champs, co-champs. They've only lost 2 or so conference games left. So they're extremely tough, disciplined defense, play really well. And so I thought our kids battled. To take the number 5 team in the country down to the wire, and a play here or there, and it's a different ball game, right? We make a field goal, we're going down to win. Instead of playing for a tie. So proud of our kids, proud of the way that our kids are preparing every week and the effort they're putting forth on the field every week. So we're excited. We just finished one of the toughest stretches in FCS football. One of our coaches was looking it up last night, and he said I told you guys this earlier in the year that we were pre-ranked. It's the 10th toughest schedule in the country coming in this season. Well, and I said it'll probably be harder by the time we're finished with our first 6, and it is. It was number 4 yet last night. We looked at it. So the 4th hardest schedule in the country up to this point. Play some really, really good teams, great defenses in Sac State, Weber State, Washington State. Abilene Christian, Incarnate Word, even Idaho State did a heck of a job. So, we're not where we want to be record-wise, but I think developmental-wise and progress-wise, we know we're on the right track and the right trajectory. So we're excited about the direction that this thing is going.
So yeah, kind of like you were saying, it's been a brutal stretch. Now you're going into a Cal Poly game. I think they're averaging 40, giving up 40 points a game, which can get skewed pretty easy. But does the mindset change going into a defense statistically a little worse, where maybe you feel like you can open up the playbook or anything along those lines?
No, I think it's a nameless, faceless opponent. You're playing yourself every week. We're playing ourselves to become our best that we can be, regardless of who lines up in front of us. They've had some tough games and tough schedule as well, right? And so, stats can always be skewed, and you can always take them how you want them. It depends on the lens you look through them, and so for us, it's let's go out there and get better. Let's be the best version of ourselves this week. Let's do all that we can do to make sure that we're prepared for the game, to play our best, and then we'll go out there on Saturday night and we'll let it rip.
Awesome. You mentioned the best version of yourselves. What do you think the ideal version of this offense looks like? I guess where do you balance like the chunk plays versus trying to stay efficient and pick up like first downs, put together long drives? What does like that perfect version of this offense
That's
look like
that's
to
a
you?
great question. I think I don't think we're there yet. I think we have a long ways to go, and I think hopefully eventually we'll get there. But every game takes on a life of its own, right? And it depends on who you're playing and their strengths and their weaknesses and whatnot. But essentially where we want to go is you want to have a fine balance between chunk plays, but also staying efficient within the not get behind the chains and playing efficiently. But being able to throw the ball and take chunk plays. And when we're best is when we can run the ball efficiently and get chunk plays in the run game and have explosive plays in the run game. It opens up so much. And so we've got a ways to go. I think we're on the right track. I think we have the right people in the building, and we're going to continue to develop and get bigger, stronger, faster, better at our skills and in our crafts. And but it's one of those things of sometimes you just take what the defense gives you, and I think that's kind of I said it on a radio show last week, and one of the things I left off on was you take what the defense gives you, and they were playing for the run, they were playing for the underneath pass last week, and so we knew we could take some shots in their corners, and we've got to clean up some of our technique on those things, and we would have had 3 or 4 of those other ones be complete and balanced and land the shot, and so but you got to stay aggressive, got to stay aggressive.
Have you noticed any difference in how you're kind of calling plays from beginning of the year to this point?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of it has to do with our personnel. You always got to adapt to your personnel and who you have, and that's one of the things that I was literally just talking about 2 minutes ago with one of our coaches. Is we're such a different team than we were week 1 or week 2. We've learned so much about our players and about who we are, and the challenge is calling it to what you have, but not trying to limit yourself so much. And so there's that fine line of, okay, I'm going to push the envelope of what we can do, but also know our limitations. And so that's a tough balancing act. And then as you get better throughout the year, it's like, okay, so you know what, maybe we can open this up a little bit more than we did 2-3 weeks ago, because we are getting better at these things, at these protections, at these routes, at these reads. And so I think it's a ongoing process. Continue to develop, continue to get better, and as you do that, the playbook tends to open up a little bit more towards you or to you.
Okay. And just from the outside, the offense has looked much better the past couple weeks, but still 13 points. How do you turn that production into points on the board?
Yeah, we got to capitalize on the fringe, just outside the red zone. It's kind of been a nemesis for us this year. We've gotten stopped multiple times in between the 25 and the 35, and so we got to capitalize on that. The other thing is explosive plays. We've lacked explosive plays the last couple weeks, and it's tough because now you're banking on a 15-play drive, a 16-play drive, a 14-play drive. You got to be perfect, and it's so hard to do. And you might be great for those first 11 plays, and that's what we saw show up on the film. We drove the ball all the way down to the 30-yard line, and then bang, you got a self-inflicted wound, or man, you missed this one read, you weren't perfect on this one play. Early on in that game, I want to say it was the second drive of the game, we had a touchdown wide open we missed, and then the next play we come back and we had a negative run or run for 1 yard, and now we're third and 9, and then we drop a ball, and then we get we go for it on fourth and we drop that, or we miss a field goal, and so it's like you got to be perfect for so long if you don't have explosive plays, and then if you're not, it stalls. And so it's our emphasis right now is explosive plays, breaking tackles, making plays outside of the design of the play, but also designing it a little bit more. I think by nature of who we are, we're trying to protect our personnel a little bit. We got a little more conservative, and we need to open it up a little bit more, and that's fine, and that's on me, and I'm more than happy to open this thing up a little bit. But explosive plays and red zone conversions are the name of the game in college football nowadays. I can't tell you how many games I've seen with people that have horrible third down percentages, and yet they're putting up 40-plus points. It's because they have explosive plays, and they're converting, and their high percentage conversion rate in the red zone. And so that's what we have to get to, and that's what our plan is, and that's how this offense is designed.
Okay, and I guess how this is I don't know if this is going to be the best way to ask it, but how can you kind of force those explosive plays so you don't have wide receiver one-on-one outside to kind of throw a 50-50 ball. How do you manufacture those?
Yeah, so that's the fun part as a coach, right? You have to go in there and figure out, okay, how can we take advantage of this structure of the defense or what they're doing or a personnel matchup, but also not expose yourself too much, because you don't want those explosive plays to be so high risk that all of a sudden we leave ourselves vulnerable to a weak protection, and now that opportunity for explosive play just resulted in a negative play, right? And so I think it's a work in progress. I think it's continuing to get better. Like I said, at the little things, at protections, at reads, at getting the ball out quicker, at, your route running, because now those things, it's the devil's in the detail, right? You perfect your details, and all of a sudden those things just happen. They start clicking. They start happening. I've seen so much progress from so many of our players from week 1 and 2 to now that I think those things are going to happen more gradually as well. So you keep going to work, you keep chopping wood, you keep showing up every day, and eventually those things will start taking place.
Really good team. I think anytime you're playing a ranked team and you have a chance to win, and you're one possession away. I think it's encouraging for our team. It's encouraging for our program. Not talking about, I'm not here to celebrate any moral victories, but we do around here. We measure success in a variety of ways, and I think the amount of improvement, I think you can factor that into the level of success. And so, despite the outcome, I was really proud of just our team as a whole, and also our defense. Defensively, we held them to all of their season lows, their points, rushing yards per carry, passing yards, efficiency, and I was just really proud of the way that the boys played. And I don't think it's because of some magical scheme or from some magical, just from anything. I think it's a tribute to the culture that Coach Lamb is building and the culture that we're trying to build on defense, which is playing with great energy, playing with great effort, and having a great attitude. And the rest takes care of itself. And so we're really encouraged about just the way we're trending defensively, because you see the culture thriving. We're making tons of mistakes, lots of mistakes, but you're not going to be perfect. A figure skater's not going to get a perfect 10, and so we definitely aren't as a defense. But I think the way that the boys have chosen to play the game, I think that's the difference. And I think since we started conference play, I think we've got noticeably better each week. We got to continue to improve our execution, but again, what we preach, what we're focused on is culture and the way in which we play the game. And I think the boys are bought into doing it. They're bought into preparing the right way. You've got guys who are second or third on the depth chart showing up to watch film in the mornings, and I think that just speaks a lot about our players, the guys that we're playing with. And so I'm really encouraged and optimistic about what we're building and the direction that we're moving. However, we do need to find a way to finish games. And the last drive of the game, we needed to stop, and we went 3 and out, and our team was in position to tie the game. And so I think when you lift up the hood and look at some of the details, I think that there's a lot that I'm excited about, and I'm really excited the direction that we're heading as a defense and as a program. The offense had, I don't know the offensive stats, but they had explosive plays, which that stuff affects the defense. Some of those, Jamari made some really nice plays, and some of those receivers made some really nice one-on-one plays, and the quarterback made some big throws, and those types of things energize the defense. And so credit to some of the things that the offense did as well that contributed to the energy. It's not just offense and defense or defense. It's all of us combined. And so there are flashes where we are playing together as a team, and you see it show on both sides of the ball individually. So, but we'll continue to address the things that we need to get better at. Third downs, I think right now we're last in the conference in third down percentage, and I think we need to. We are addressing that schematically and personnel-wise, and we're really trying to break down why it is that we're not converting those. And I think it's a combination of a few things, and so that's going to be an emphasis for us this week, is getting better on third downs. One thing that's encouraging is we do lead the conference in fourth down conversions, though. And so it's kind of a feast or famine right now on defense, and so, again, I think that's attributed to the culture and the players. There's been some times where the boys have bailed us out, like full transparency, the fourth down stop that we had in the red zone, we had 10 guys on the field. So I wish I could say that's coaching, but that's our players, and it's our culture and our attitude and our effort thriving in that moment, despite a coaching error. Put that on the coaches, put that on me as the coordinator. And so we're doing a lot of things well. We just got to continue to be better at the things that we're not doing well, which is third downs, because those lead to stops, those lead to more possessions for the offense and more opportunities to score.
Which player was missing?
I don't think that's fair to say to that player. I'll let you go watch the film and figure it out.
Not what player, but which position?
It was my position. One of the safeties was missing, and so that put it on me. Put it on me, and it was disappointing because it was coming out of a timeout too. So that's an error on my part, and I have to be better. And so, fortunately, the other 10 guys covered up my mistake just as a position coach. So that can't happen. That's definitely on us. It's on me, and good learning experience that we dodged a bullet, thankfully, for our players.
Nice. Well, you did a pretty good job, honestly, touching on just about everything I had. But you mentioned early you're not here to celebrate moral victories. But I don't remember if it was you or Coach Lamb earlier in the season had mentioned it's hard to keep the defense really motivated when things aren't going so well because you don't get that like direct gratification of scoring a touchdown or getting like the stats built up. So how do you kind of balance that not wanting to celebrate in a loss, but building off of like a good week where there were a lot of tangible like good things that happened?
I think it might have been Coach Lamb who talked about that.
Demoralized defense is what we call it.
Yeah,
Okay.
And demoralized defense is something, and that's a thing that's very real. You see it happening in all of college football and NFL and in high school where just things aren't going your way, and you're defending a lot of snaps, you're defending a lot of possessions, and so that's a trap. That's something that's a very real thing that I think every coach and player has been a part of at some point in their career multiple times. But for us, fortunately, one of the things I love about being a defensive guy, being a defensive player, being a defensive coach, is I think the majority, if you just talk stats, I think the majority of the stats are team stats. There's just not as many opportunities for a defensive player to have as many individual stats outside of, their sacks, there's, your tackles, and there are individual stats, but not that they don't get celebrated or acknowledged like to the extent like they do for an offensive player. That's just the nature of football. Fans, people want to see points, they want to see touchdowns, they want to see scores. They don't want to see stops, and that's okay. That's just the life we chose, being on defense. But there are some things to celebrate that as a defense. One thing that we do emphasize as defense, and just it is my opinion, that just in referencing stats, that points are the most relevant stat. Like there's a direct correlation between points, like scoring and not letting them score, and wins and losses. But I think the next most relevant stat for a defense that's kind of over the last couple of years in college football is stop rate. And what the stop rate is it's the number of possessions that you're defending divided by the number of stops that you get. So if we use a round number like 10, so say you defend 10 possessions in a game, and they score, so I'll use this past game for example, Sac State, our stop rate was 70%, which is 70% stop rate puts you in the top 25 defensively, nationally. And so they had 10 possessions and they had 3 scores. Now a score, whether it's a field goal or a touchdown, like it's just a score. And so they scored on 3 of 10 possessions, and so we stopped them on 7 of 10. 7 divided by 10 is 7%. And so stop rate is something that we more just track as coaches. We let our players know where we're at just so we can track our own progress, but I think that's some quantifiable data that allows our players to see our progress instead of just us sitting here saying, yeah, guys, we're getting better, you can feel it. No, it's not just a gut feeling. This is actual data that shows. So since we started conference play, we were 58% stop rate versus Idaho State, which is not good enough. 78% against Weber State, and now 70% against Sac State. And so I only mention that just to you talk about stats to celebrate and the no more victories. I only bring that up because that is something that we're celebrating. That is something that we're trying to build off of and create momentum. And I think it's got the boys excited. It's got the level of buy-in at a high level. We're an 0-6 team right now. I think we've played. I saw something going around on Twitter that we played the 4th toughest schedule in the country right now, and so there's a lot to. We played good defenses against good teams and good offenses, and so I think the boys are excited about that. I think the team is excited about that, and it's something that we can continue to build off of as a unit, and continue to try and play complementary and do our part as a defense.
Seems like against Sac State, played behind the line of scrimmage more so previously. Do you think that's true? Or?
I don't know off the top of my head, like as far as like TFLs, and I felt like against Sac State we didn't win enough on first down, and so a lot of their third down conversions were like 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, where probably as far as probabilities go, the odds are in their favor in those situations, and so that was something that I felt like we took a step back, or I guess that Sac State did well, was they were winning on first down, and generating, I wouldn't call it explosive plays, but positive plays in the run game, and staying on schedule, I guess is how probably most offensive guys put it, but we didn't get them off schedule enough, and so, I thought the defensive line played well. I thought we had some. We've had some injuries up front where we've made some position changes and had some linebackers move to D-end and kind of play a hybrid role, and some younger guys and interior guys take on a bigger role, and I thought they did a good job, I haven't tracked that as far as like who's in the backfield and what, but I thought we tackled well. There were some key missed tackles, but as a unit in general, I thought our tackling's been consistent over the last few weeks now, and I think we just got to continue to address the third downs, which starts with winning on first down. But even the 3rd and longs, we're still not getting out of it. Like the 3rd and 13, they scored a touchdown, which their guy made a great play. And I wouldn't change the call. I wouldn't change who's in the game. It's sometimes their guy makes a really nice play.
You probably touched on it, but what do you think has been the difference, kind of, in the defense growth from the beginning of the year? Say a game like Incarnate Word, for example, it felt like a point was reached where the floodgates kind of opened after the defense had been on the field for so long, and it looked like I think it was early in that 4th quarter. It looked like there could have been a time where that happened against Sac State, and then I think the back-to-back penalties kind of helped you guys out, and it feel like it re-energized you. I guess has there been a tangible change that you've noticed in that stuff, or has it just kind of been grinding away and the results have showed up?
I think to answer the first part of your question, I think it takes some time to learn your own identity and figure out who are we actually. What can we execute as a defense? Obviously we have as a coordinator, as a coach, we have in mind who we'd like to be. But I think what's most important is what can we be, and so I think it takes some time to figure that out and learn more about your players once the bullets are flying, and I think that Incarnate Word week we were still just scratching the surface, and I thought we did a lot of good things that game, and I think you mentioned it. There was just it got to a point in the game where we weren't able to maintain or sustain the level of play that we had earlier in the game, and so I think I think just younger players getting more game experience, and us as coaches getting more game experience with our players, with ourselves, with each other. I think all those things are contributing factors, and then just the culture continue to grow and the culture continue to take shape. And I think if you turn the tape on now versus that Incarnate Word week, I think we're just playing harder, we're playing more physical, we're tackling better, and I think we're just more resilient. And I think those are some of the contributing factors. And the second part of your question, I can't remember what you were asking. The second part.
I guess in that Incarnate Word game, it felt like there was a point where, like you mentioned, I don't know if it was tired or just young players, but in this Sac State game, it felt like there was a chance to give up, for lack of a better term.
Okay, right.
Early in that fourth quarter. I actually didn't realize until I went back that penalty had called back a 40-yard touchdown catch.
Yeah.
And then the second one set you guys up, and then I think the only other possession you had defensively was a 3-and-out after that. So is there, I guess, what can you attribute to that, like the change there?
I think I attribute it to the, like I think I mentioned it before, but just the way we're playing. You know, like, yeah, there was a point in that game where like we were, you know, as a team we were just stalling, and they were moving the ball, but we were finding a way to get stops. And you mentioned they had a 40-yard touchdown completion, and they had 2 penalties on that drive. And I think it was our players who forced those penalties. They had a holding because we try to emphasize one of our skills and fundamentals. We regularly emphasize what we call block destruction, or just your ability to get off a block. Because the marks of a great football player are 2 things: being able to defeat a block and make a tackle in addition to. And we had one of our defensive linemen, he did that, which forced the offensive player to hold him. And then they completed the pass, and then they blindsided one of our guy who would have been a would-be tackler on that play. And so penalties are part of the game. Whether we force that penalty or not, it's part of the game. And I think it was our doing that forced that penalty, which led to that score, which again put them behind the change, which increased the odds for us, or the probabilities of us getting a stop, which it did. And so definitely penalties were a factor, but it was the play of our guys that forced those penalties. And so I credit that to our guys. And out of no disrespect to Sac State or to anything that they're doing, but I believe that our guys forced them to commit those penalties. Because when you're throwing another man to the ground, he's either got to let go and let you make the play or hold on. And their guy chose to hold on instead of let our guy make the play. So I think it's just I think it's our effort, our energy, our culture, our attitude. I think it's that you're seeing that's had more time to develop, and just as you play more football, you're going to get better. You know, and so I think that's just organically what's happening as well. You know, more time in the system, more time in the culture. I think just regardless of who's coaching the player, like if I'm coaching Tyzel Lewis, no matter who's coaching him, he's going to get better because he's just playing more football. You know, and so how much he gets better, you know, I think coaching could affect that a bit, but at the end of the day, he's going to get better regardless of who's coaching him. So hopefully that answers your question.
You know, thank you. And then kind of moving forward, what unique challenges does Sam Heward kind of pose you guys? I think he started at Washington, and he's been a bright spot on that team so far. They seem to like to throw the ball around.
Yeah, they have an identity. They know who they have, who they are. He is a dangerous quarterback. He's a strong arm. He's very accurate, and when he is protected, he can make a lot of the throws that they're asking him to make. And so I think he definitely does pose a problem. I think he is athletic enough to extend drives, and he definitely is extending drives to throw the ball. You know, and not that he's not capable of running, because he is, but I think he does a really nice job of keeping his eyes downfield while he scrambles. But yeah, the quarterback is a problem. He's good, and he wasn't a 5-star coming out of high school for no reason. You know, and there's a reason he signed originally where he did, and whatever his reasons were for transferring, it's none of my business. But it doesn't erase the fact that he is a good football player, and I think they use him the right way, and they're behind him, and he's what makes that thing goes. And then he has a good supporting cast. I think this receiving core is about as good as we've played this season. They distribute the ball fairly evenly. I think there's 3 or 4 receivers that have about 20 catches apiece, and who are very capable players. And the offensive line is really athletic, and you can tell it's a position that they put a lot of emphasis in developing. They've got really athletic players that you can tell they're developing them into getting even bigger and stronger. But they've got an athletic line, and the running backs. I think it's by committee as well. They've got different change-ups. I think number 21 runs really hard. I think number 4 is really balanced and dynamic, and you better bring your feet when you tackle him. And then they also have number 5, the freshman, who I think is also a physical runner as well. And so I think they've got, they're definitely by committee at the tight end and at the running back position. And then the receivers are really talented. They're a really talented group. And then they've got a quarterback who can make all the throws and get it to him and give him a chance to make a play on a 50-50 ball or deliver an accurate throw when he's settling in a window. So it's a good offense, and they throw it around a lot, and they're capable of scoring a lot of points. So like we say every week, it's a tall order. That's fair to say.